My name is Ann Austin, and I'm a writer, producer, and I've been working in the kids' TV business for about 30 years now. Um, and it's all I've ever wanted to do. I love children's television, it's very near and dear to my heart. I was born in Southern California, and the world outside my window has always been a very diverse place. Um, but I recognized early on that the TV that I loved didn't necessarily reflect that. I was fortunate, I went to film school. And when I came out of film school, I was so convinced that I was going to change the world. And I truly believed the only way to do that was to work in public television or educational television. Instead, my very first job was producing Power Rangers, about as opposite as you can get from where I thought I would end up. But I learned so much from that experience. I learned so much working on Power Rangers. And I was very grateful for the experience because it showed me how huge an impact a hit like that can have on kids' lives. And not just on kids' lives, but on the very conversation around the role of media in children's lives. My boss at the time was the legendary children's media executive, network executive, producer Margaret Lesh. She knew that I wanted to work in educational kids' TV, but she told me kids deserve a cornucopia. They deserve as many choices as adults have. And so that helped me soothe my conscience that I was working on this crazy, wacky show. But that crazy, wacky show had an enormous reach. When it came to casting Power Rangers, from day one, we knew we wanted a diverse cast. But what we didn't know is that that template that we established would become a template for many, many years to come. We wanted gender balance and we wanted diversity and we wanted to be able to show a variety of leaders from different backgrounds. That had a huge impact on our viewers. And I truly believe is one of the reasons for the show's success. We have many breakthroughs. We had the first Vietnamese American female lead. We had a character who was Native American. Who went on to become the leader of the Rangers. We had the first Pacific Islander lead. We really just looked for kids who were extraordinary, and it gave our viewers the chance to see themselves as superheroes in a way they'd never been seen before. My second experience that I wanted to share, writing and producing a Disney Channel original movie called Johnny Tsunami. So Johnny Tsunami came about in the heyday of the Disney Channel original movies. Before there was High School Musical and before Descendants, Disney was making these lovely little family films that were entertaining but also had a lot of heart. And Johnny was a project that was one of the absolute highlights of my career. It was just a delightful film. It may not be as well known outside of the US, but inside the US, it was really the first time that a mixed race Asian white child was the lead role. And more than that, we dealt with the makeup of the family and what that meant to this child's experience. Families come in many different configurations, and it is so important that children feel that their content reflects the family that they come from. Children need to see themselves reflected in the families that we portray in our shows. But by casting a mixed race kid who's half Filipino, half white, we brought something else to that movie that really resonated with our audience. And I found this out in a very personal way because years later, one of my daughter's best friends, who was half Filipino, half white, came to me. And when he found out I wrote that movie, he went insane because it had meant so much to him. Another way I know that Johnny touched a nerve for a lot of mixed race kids, we got a shout out on Tiger King of all the crazy things. One of the people who worked in that crazy zoo, Saf, when they asked him, who do you want to play you in the upcoming movie? He said, the actor who played Johnny Tsunami, because no one else looks like me. What we learned there is that the casting choice adds a layer of meaning, and it's powerful. Break barriers and be a mentor. These seem obvious, but they're not. So you see this picture behind me? That is from a book called The Snowy Day, which was written in 1962. And it was the first mainstream American children's book with an African American protagonist. And it won many awards. It was absolutely groundbreaking. It was a huge commercial and critical success. And it is listed in the Library of Congress as one of the 100 most important books in American literature. And it took 50 years for that book to get made into a children's holiday special. Because still, all these years later, it was still hard to get a project off the ground with an African American lead. But we did it. Amazon was a great partner. The special was beautiful and beloved and won a lot of awards, but it was harder to get made than it should have been. So when we went to adopt Snowy Day, or rather the other books of the same author, Ezra Jack Keats, for a contemporary series, we really had to look at, is it enough to just have white writers? We really felt it important to bring on additional voices, African American voices, and specifically an African American male voice. So he, as a writer, could really talk to things in his life that he wants to pass on to other children growing up today. And I hear a lot of times producers complaining that they can't find experienced enough writers or showrunners to do the work for all these wonderful new diverse projects that are popping up. So here's what I say to that. Hire someone new, hire someone green, and as an experienced showrunner, mentor them, partner with them, and then you will have the showrunners and the experienced writers that you need. It has to start somewhere. When Ezra wrote The Snowy Day, the book, he said, this child exists in the world and he deserves to have a voice. And so the same is true in children's animation. You have to start somewhere. So if you can't find the writers you're looking for, train them, hire them, and give them a shot. For the past 6 years, I have been working with Mattel on the Barbie brand. I produce the TV series Dreamhouse Adventures, I produce their most recent films, and I'm currently producing the Barbie vlog series. Obviously, this is a huge brand. She's been around for 60 years and is, by most accounts, the most recognizable female character in the world. At the moment, she's the #1 toy brand in the world. And yet, we recognize that with great power comes great responsibility. And so Mattel as a company is doing a lot with the Barbie brand, and it's constantly evolving. And there's some incredibly wonderful and exciting, huge initiatives coming up that I can't talk about. But what I can talk about is what we've done on the series side with this very iconic white character, to make her world feel inclusive to all. Bringing background characters to the foreground brings you more opportunity to bring in additional voices to your storylines. We have a character that's been in the Barbie world for a long time called Nikki. She's African American. She's a great character. She's a fashionista. She's smart. She's an entrepreneur. She's a great friend to Barbie, and she's just a great person. Last summer, when there was so much discussion about racism and racial inequality in the world, we felt we had to address it somehow. And we felt that Nikki was the best way for us to engage in that conversation. We really saved the more poignant conversations for the Barbie vlog series. It's a slightly older audience, it's on YouTube, and Barbie as a vlogger is able to speak directly to camera, and that forms a really trusted bond between her and the viewers. We used an African American female writer to write the vlog, and she gave us a story from her own life. And that vlog has been shown around the world. It got tons of press coverage, but more importantly, it opened up the conversation for so many parents and children to discuss what it meant to experience racism today. But it's a way that we found to get into a really meaningful conversation, and it came from a completely authentic and real place. And Barbie is able to model the behavior of an ally. And well, you can see the vlog. I think that says it all.
So there is a huge movement going on. People, millions of people across the world are standing up to fight against racism. This stuff isn't easy to talk about, which is exactly why we have to talk about it.
It's a tough conversation, but I'm glad we're having it. People might think that my life looks fine, but the truth is I and so many other Black people have to deal with racism. That's exactly why people are marching, because when enough of us stand together, people pay attention.
Right, because when we don't say anything, we're just letting it continue.
Well, you listening and being supportive, that's helpful. It's important to keep reading and learning more about Black history. And if someone is being treated unfairly, stand up for that person. If we all work together, we can make a big difference.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this with me today, with us.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's necessary.
To subvert the mainstream media, you have to connect. You have to connect with an audience. And filling a quota doesn't get you there. Don't look to diversity because it ticks a box. Look to it because it makes your story better. The more different voices you have in your writer's room, in your creative pool, the more opportunities you have to tell stories that have never been told before. And I think nothing has done that better in my career than Waffles and Mochi, which was an unbelievable experience. I'm so proud of that show. And it was really sort of, at this point, maybe the pinnacle of what we can hope to achieve in terms of diversity and inclusivity. From every position in the production, from top to bottom, from soup to nuts, was just a cornucopia of people. And it in the writer's room, I was the only white woman. Everyone that worked there was from a different background, including a guy, a wonderful writer with cerebral palsy who was in a wheelchair. And he was a fantastic writer and brought great story insights. But he also brought a point of view of someone living life in a wheelchair that I had never experienced before. And his stories and his experiences we were able to put into, even in small ways, like in the grocery store set, to have certain items on lower shelves. You know, remind kids that when you drop your bike in the sidewalk or when you drop your scooter in the sidewalk, someone with a wheelchair can't get past it. So we've come a long way, but also talking to this writer in terms of reflecting the disabled community, we still have a long way to go. Speaking to this disabled writer showed me that when you broaden the voices that are in the room, you can broaden your stories in a way you wouldn't have before. Bringing those fresh voices, those underserved voices, helps you make better stories, and it helps you reach more people that aren't seeing themselves reflected in your content. Lesson 1. A big hit has a big impact. Don't feel like you can't make a difference unless it's with a specific kind of content. Lesson 2. Think outside the box when it comes to the makeup of the families you portray. The very act of casting or highlighting a mixed family creates a subtext that will impact the general audience and will tell the kids who come from those families that they are seen. Lesson 3. Break barriers and be a mentor. Mainstream media thrives on telling stories that are universal, but a breakout hit comes from seeing that universal story being told from a new perspective. Authenticity comes from telling stories that mean something to you personally. If you don't personally relate to a community, work with someone who does. You will grow the talent pool by mentoring and will discover a whole new world of potential stories to tell. Lesson 4. Use your power for good. Be a good ally. With great power comes great responsibility. Having a well-established brand is the perfect place to make a difference in your mainline content as well as in supplemental content. Expand your world by introducing new characters from different backgrounds, with different body types and abilities, and different perspectives. Listen to the conversations happening in the world and join in. Lesson 5. Don't fill a quota. Do it because it makes your show better. A diverse writing room, diverse artists, a diverse cast and crew is going to influence how you tell your stories in a positive, more inclusive way. There will always be new communities coming to light that will need to be recognized. So dig deep to find those new voices. We've come a long way, but it is an ever-evolving mission. Don't be so afraid you'll get it wrong that you fail to try at all. Every step forward counts. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I kind of get on my soapbox and get really emotional, but this matters to me. I'm going to do it again. You can make a difference. So I hope you found some ways that you can go out and make a difference. Thanks.